So, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Simone Gott from Jigsaw Queensland, and the Forced Adoption Support Service at Jigsaw is proud to bring you this DNA 101 information session. And I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians on the land where Jigsaw operates from in Brisbane, the Yagara and Turrbal people. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present. So today it's my pleasure to introduce Melanie Dunstan, who is the founder of DNA Connection. She's going to spend the next hour with us sharing her valuable insights and knowledge about DNA and its uses. And and I think it's a great opportunity to explore how DNA can assist people who are impacted by adoption in their search for information about their history and questions that they may have. So I will now hand over to Melanie, who will be able to tell you a little bit about herself and go through the information today. Thanks, Melanie.
Thanks, Simone. All right, give me a minute just to get this hopefully behaving itself. This one over here, this one over here. Okay, can you see that screen okay, Simone?
Absolutely, I can, Mel.
Beautiful. So welcome everyone and thank you for being here. As Simone said, I'm Melanie Dunstan. I'm a genetic genealogist and I started the DNA Connection in about 2018. And today we're going to explore together how DNA testing and genetic genealogy can support you to learn more about your family. So a little bit about our agenda. This is what we're going to cover, and I'll attempt to break down each section simply and share with you some tips I've learned along the way. And hopefully we'll give you some more ideas on, and I'll try my best to keep it simple. I was saying to Simone, it's quite complicated, but so hopefully I'll try and make it as simple as I can. And at the end, I'm going to share some resources for you as well. So a bit about me. I'm a registered nurse, midwife and nurse practitioner by day, but by night I'm a genetic genealogy sleuth. And about 10 years ago, I took my first ancestry DNA test. And this is what kicked off, honestly, I can say it became a bit of a healthy addiction. I was absolutely hooked and I started learning from members of my local family history group. And they had a monthly DNA discussion group. So I had no idea what I was doing before I went along to that. But before long, I was starting to help out with classes and one-on-one sessions. And it was through that I started supporting people searching for their biological roots, and especially people that had been impacted by adoption. And during this time, I found that there was a surprising and beautiful overlap between my midwifery and nursing world and this particular work. And my professional life, I'm all about supporting people, nurturing them, counselling, and walking alongside them through some of their most vulnerable moments. And genetic genealogy kind of taps into exactly the same heart that you need for this kind of thing. So over the years, I've continued my education, diving into everything from genetic conditions to adoption reunions and working with people who were searching for missing parents, unknown siblings, and building out complicated family mysteries. I even trained in open source intelligence and private investigation techniques. And this wasn't to learn how to find people, but how to just find people, but how to do it ethically and legally and with care and due diligence. And during COVID, while doing my private investigator training, which was probably a really unique time to do it, I found myself in some very, let's say, unusual situations, hiding behind bushes and casually trailing someone's car, which was not exactly James Bond, but more suburban sleuth in active wear, but always it was legal and ethically good and generally for a good reason, and it was quite good fun. I'm also a bit of a true crime nerd, self-confessed dork. And in fact, you can even check out my AI generated dream office in the corner there, complete with me at my desk, a complex DNA case on my screen. My cat's always supervising, and of course, a set of bagpipes in the corner, which links to my Scottish identity. I'm learning to play them, and they are not the most simple of instruments in the world. But more than anything, I love helping people, I love solving puzzles, and I love understanding what makes people tick. This work deeply matters to me because identity matters. Knowing where we come from isn't just curiosity, it's foundational to who we are. And in every case I work on, I'm reminded of the privilege that it is to be part of someone's story. So, what is genetic genealogy? So, genealogy is the study of families, family history, and the tracing of your lineage. Genealogists use oral interviews, historical records, genetic analysis, and other records to obtain information about a family and to demonstrate kinship and the pedigrees of its members. The field of family history is broader than genealogy and covers not just the lineage, but also the family and community history and biography relating to that family. The term genetic genealogy was first coined in the late 1990s, so it is still relatively new. And it's the use of DNA testing in combination with traditional genealogical research to determine relationships between individuals and to build family trees. It's become a powerful tool for solving unknown parentage cases, adoption mysteries, finding missing family members, and deep ancestral connections. And it's moving into other fields a little bit now as well. So for adopted and donor conceived individuals, the journey to understand their origins is deeply personal. DNA can provide powerful insights, but it often comes with emotional complexity and unexpected discoveries. Each DNA testing journey is individual. Think of genetic genealogy as another tool to assist you on your journey. It's not always about finding birth parents or children. Sometimes it's about connecting with siblings, uncovering missing ancestors, confirming long-held family stories, or navigating cases of misattributed parentage. There are many reasons that lead someone to take a DNA test. Some people just test to see what ethnicity they are, and some people just do it for fun to see if they have some of the trait features like their supposed love of coriander or if they have sticky earwax. So everybody tests for a different reason, and I think it's important to remember that too. So let's talk about DNA testing being it's a powerful tool, but it's not a magic wand. So let's talk through what it can and can't do, so you feel prepared and you don't go in with unrealistic expectations. First off, what can it do? It can connect you with other people who have tested and share DNA with you, and these people become your DNA matches. Depending on who's already tested and is in the database, you might match with cousins, half-siblings, or even parents. This is especially helpful if you don't have a name to start with. Your DNA gives you clues that may lead to a family line. Some people get lucky and find close matches right away, and others might need to wait and build things out more slowly as more matches come through. Now, what it can't do, or at least not yet, it won't name your biological parents unless you match with them straight up. You might have to work that out using your matches. A big one to remember is ethnicity results are not the same as finding family. They're interesting, but they're not usually helpful in identifying relatives, particularly in Australia. DNA sometimes reveals surprises, siblings you didn't know about, or that someone who raised you isn't that genetically related. This can be confronting, and it's okay to take your time with this. The databases won't build your family tree for you. You'll need to do that part by looking at your matches, checking their public trees, and piecing things together over time. The databases don't explain the connection. A close match might say first cousin, but the test doesn't tell you which side of the family they're on, but that's starting to change. I'll talk about that in a minute. Or through which relative you're connected. That's something that you work out by comparing shared matches and family trees. Some of the databases are working on which side of the family they may be on though, and the platforms are always improving. DNA testing is a tool. It opens a door. What you do with that door is up to you. Some people dive right in, others wait, and either choice is really valid. DNA can be absolutely transformative. I've seen it firsthand. It fills in missing pieces for people who have spent their lives wondering where they come from. It can reconnect siblings, reunite parents and children, and even just give someone a clearer sense of their identity. But it's not always that deep and emotional, and that's something we need to consider. As I said, people test for all sorts of reasons. Some test because they want to find their birth family or uncover a family mystery, and others do it just for fun. They're curious about their ethnicity, or they want to learn quirky traits like why they hate coriander, or they've got sticky earwax, like I said. But then there's more complex motivations. I've had clients who've taken a test because of legal reasons, to prove a biological connection for inheritance purposes, to support a claim in a will or a probate situation, or to navigate complex family legalities. So when we talk about using DNA to find families, especially unknown parents or siblings, the type of test we're using is called an autosomal DNA test. It's the one that gives us the results that we need when we're working in this space. Autosomal DNA tests are the ones used by companies like Ancestry DNA, MyHeritage, 23andMe, and Family Tree DNA. This test looks at your DNA across all of your chromosomes, the ones you inherit from both sides of your family, not just from one side. This is what makes it so powerful. It can pick up matches from either side of your family tree, e.g. mum's side, dad's side, and even gives you information about grandparents and great-grandparents, and then compares that to the millions of other people in the same database. This type of test doesn't give you just a name, but it gives you matches of people that you share DNA with, and that's the key to family discovery. You get a list of DNA matches who share enough DNA with you to be some kind of relative. Depending on who's tested, that might be a second cousin, a half sibling, or even a parent. From there, you work backwards, grouping matches, comparing trees, and building a picture of your biological family. This is why autosomal DNA is the gold standard for family discovery. It gives you the puzzle pieces, and what you do with them is the next step. So when we say DNA testing can tell you exactly who your mum or dad is, that's true. But autosomal testing gives you the raw data to figure that out. It's the starting point. It's not always the answer in a box. So what does a DNA test involve? It usually starts with a simple cheek swab or a saliva test, depending on which company you test with. Once the DNA is processed, it's compared to other testers in the same database, and you get a list of genetic matches based on how much DNA is shared. From there, you can determine how closely people are related and start building or reviewing family trees to find where people connect. It's a step-by-step process, and I'll try and walk you through each part in more detail shortly. This section is all about understanding DNA testing, because while many of us have heard of it or even taken a test ourselves, the details really matter. We're going to walk through the main testing companies that people are using right now, how to decide which one to choose depending on your research goals, and most importantly, what's actually important to know before, during, and after testing. Not all tests are created equal. So this part will help you feel more confident in understanding the why, how, and what to expect. As I said before, Autosomal DNA tests are the ones used by companies like Ancestry, MyHeritage, 23andMe, and Family Tree DNA. This is the test that looks at your DNA across all of your chromosomes, the ones you inherit from both sides of your family, not just from the one line. These are the ideal tests to use for the purpose we are intending. On this slide, you can see some of the other tests I just want you to be aware of, but I'm not going to talk about them today. So Y-DNA looks at male pattern of descendancy, and mitochondrial DNA looks at maternal lines. So know that they exist, but I'm not going to cover them today. So each company has its strengths. Ancestry has the largest DNA base, which is important for finding matches. Currently, they have roughly over 27 million testers in their database, and this is always the first place that I recommend. It's an easy website to navigate your way around. From Ancestry, you have the ability to download your raw DNA data file and upload it to both MyHeritage and Family Tree DNA databases. You can then pay a small fee to unlock additional DNA matches in those databases. Ancestry DNA and 23andMe are the only major genealogy testing companies that don't accept DNA data transfers inwards. So if you want to get your DNA into their databases, you need to test directly with them. MyHeritage is good for international matches. It has a strong user testing base in Europe and parts of Asia, making it ideal for people with recent ancestry from countries like Germany, Poland, Ireland, the UK, Italy, and Greece. Currently, there's about 7 million testers in this database. 23andMe were in the media recently with the CEO resigning and the company filing for bankruptcy. You can make your own decision if it's wise to test here currently. There's 15 million people approximately tested here. It is an expensive test if you're paying in Australian dollars, and not a lot of Australians had chosen to test in this database. Family Tree DNA is the only major company that offers the 3 different types of DNA testing. There's approximately 2 million testers in there. You can opt in for law enforcement matches in this website. The website is a bit clunky to use and the interface is more technical. It's better suited to intermediate or advanced users. There is another database called GEDmatch, which you may have heard of. GEDmatch is a free database that allows users to compare kits from different platforms. This website could be a whole talk on its own. This website can be used by law enforcement to assist with unidentified human remains or crime scene samples, but your kit is in an opt-in or opt-out for this type of work. There can be benefits to uploading your DNA here. As I said, I recommend Ancestry first, but other websites and databases do have their place. The size of the database really matters because you're only going to match with people who have tested within that company. So if your biological parent or host family has tested, but they're with a different company, you won't see them unless you're in that database too. That's why starting with the biggest one, like Ancestry DNA, gives you the best chance of finding close relatives as you're comparing to 27 million other tests. So as I said, each DNA company has its own database. It's kind of like its own neighborhood or a community of testers. If you test with Ancestry DNA, you'll only match with people who have tested there. But there might be close relatives sitting over at MyHeritage or Family Tree DNA who you'd never know about unless you're in their system too. That's why we recommend uploading your DNA to as many databases as you can. You're casting a wider net. It's like being listed in every phone book. The more places you're visible, the better chance you'll find someone can find you or you can find them. Some people refer it to fishing in all ponds, but I like to think of it as more as opening more doors or joining more family conversations. You don't know where that next close match might turn up. So, for Australian adoptees or donor conceived people, the most important thing is getting into the largest possible database because that gives you the best chance of finding close matches, especially if you have no information about your biological parents. So, right now, that means starting with Ancestry DNA. While it's US based, it still has the highest numbers of Australian testers in it, and it's the best place to start if you're hoping to identify a biological family. Another reason that you might choose one of the other testing companies is the type of test required. Most people manage the saliva tube testing fine, but if you or someone you're helping with has difficulty with creating, it's about two, 2 centimeters in a sort of a test tube. And I can't remember how many mils it is, but it's not a large amount, but whether due to age, dry mouth, sensory issues, or disability, a cheek swab might be better options. So my grandmother couldn't get enough spit out of her, so we did a cheek swab for her. The actual test, the autosomal testing, is the same. It's just the collection techniques that is different. So MyHeritage and Family Tree DNA uses a cheek swab, which you just rub inside your cheek for 30 to 60 seconds to collect the cells. It's a quick, non-invasive, and it's not often easier for older adults, children, or people with medical issues. Whereas Ancestry and 23andMe is a saliva-based testing where you spit into a tube and you need to fill the tube to a certain level with spit. It can be difficult for younger people, people with dry mouth, or some people with health conditions. When considering your DNA testing options, it's important to be aware of the associated costs as they vary greatly between the different companies. For us in Australia, Ancestry offers a standard test at a regular price of $129, which includes taxes, and then there's a shipping fee on top of that. They've currently got a sale on, which is very timely for us, which ends on the 2nd of July 2025, and the tests are currently $99. There is an additional shipping fee, as I said, of $29.99 for the first kit, and if you order additional kits, there's a reduced fee of $10 for each kit purchased up in the same order. It's also worth noting that Ancestry occasionally offers promotions or discounts, so it's beneficial to check their website or subscribe to their mailing list for any current deals. And some Facebook groups also share the sales when they come up. They typically do it around Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas and things. So I'm not sure what this special was for, but we'll take it. So if you decide with test with Ancestry, let's walk through what the test actually looks like. It's very straightforward. There's no blood. It's just spit. So inside the kit, you'll find a clear instructions sheet. The saliva tube with a funnel that's attached, and you can see that sort of in that picture down the bottom, and a prepaid return box so you can post it back easily. Before you do the test, you don't eat, drink, chew chewing gum, or smoke for at least 30 minutes. Otherwise, it can interfere with the result. You spit into the tube until you filled up the spit to the black line. You then screw on the cap tightly, and there's some stabilizer fluid which will then mix with the sample, which you can see that little bit of blue in that lid there. Give it a good shake. There will be an activation code on the paperwork in the box. You need to make sure that you activate the kit on your Ancestry account online before you put it in the return, the post pack, and send it back. So I've known of some people throwing out the activation code and then you've got no way of tracking your kit. So make sure that you activate the kit. From there, it's just waiting. It can take 6 to 8 weeks to process the sample. And once it's done, you get an email telling you that your results are ready online. So the waiting time is sometimes the hardest. It's during this time I suggest that you start an online treat on Ancestry using the information that you already know. So that might be the one side of the family that you do know, or the little bits of information that you might have. I suggest that you make the tree private and unsearchable, and you do this in the Ancestry settings. Before we move on, I'd just like to pause here and check in and make sure that everybody's traveling okay, everything's making sense. I just want to acknowledge that every case is unique. There's no one size fits all approach when it comes to DNA and family discovery, and each person comes with their own history and goals and emotional landscapes. That said, it's always worth taking a moment to step back and consider a research plan, even if it's informal, before you do a test. It can really help to start with a clear intention, and in most cases, testing with Ancestry First is the best move, simply because of the size of their database, which will give you more matches. So once your DNA is processed, you get a list of people you share DNA with. These are called your DNA matches. These matches are other people who have tested and share a genetic connection with you, even if you've never met. The way we figure out how closely you might be related is by looking at something called centimorgans, or CMs for short. It's a measure of how much DNA you share with someone. So what is a centimorgan? A centimorgan is a unit of genetic measurement. Every person has around 6,800 centimorgans of autosomal DNA, and we inherit roughly 3,400 centimorgans from each parent, and we roughly get half from each parent. The centimorgans tell us how much DNA two people share. Generally, the higher the number, the closer the biological relationship is likely to be. But, and this is important, it is not an exact science. Families can be messy, and DNA inheritance patterns can be very random. So two people might share the same number of centimorgans, but have very different relationships depending on things like age, geography, and family structure. There are lots of tools and websites that can help us with this. Some DNA testing platforms have inbuilt relationship predictors based on the centimorgan ranges. And for some more advanced users, there are visual aids and tools that help us map out these possibilities more clearly. So in summary, centimorgans are like a genetic measuring tape. They give us probabilities, not guarantees. They're just one piece of the puzzle that we use in genetic genealogy to try and figure out how people might be connected. Before we look at the relationship prediction, we need to understand degrees of separation. 1 degree of separation means one person away from you. For example, your parent is separated from you by 1 degree and your grandparents by 2 degrees. In the image on the left, you see that your first cousin is separated from you by 4 degrees because they're 4 people away from you. Cousins. The difference between a first, second, or third cousin is which set of grandparents you share. Grandparents, great-grandparents, or great-great-grandparents. Removed. In cousin relationships, removed means a difference in generations. Your first cousin is the same generation as you are. Your first cousin once removed would be either your parents' first cousin, since they're 1 generation before you, or your first cousin's child, since they're 1 generation after you. The difference between a once, twice, or 3 times removed cousin depends on how many generations separate you from your cousin. In the image on the right, you share a grandparent with this cousin, so they're a first cousin. And since they're 2 generations from you, they're your first cousin twice removed. I hope that makes sense. Now that we've talked through about what a centimorgan is and how it measures DNA, let's talk about what those numbers actually mean in terms of relationships. Here's the thing. While more centimorgans generally means a closer relationship, centimorgans can overlap between very different types of relatives, and this is where it can get tricky. For example, Someone who shares over 3,300 centimorgans with you, that's an easy one. That's going to be a parent or a child. But once we drop into the 2,200 or 3 to 3,300 centimorgan range, things get a little bit more flexible. This could be a full sibling, or in rare cases, a complex relationship like a half sibling who is also a cousin. And yes, that happens more than you think. Then if someone shares around 1,300 centimorgans to 2,200 centimorgans, we're looking at a broader group. This could be a half sibling, an aunt, an uncle, a niece or a nephew, a grandparent, or even a double first cousin. There's a big range with lots of possibilities, and most people are surprised that someone in the first cousin range could actually be their half sibling or their grandparent. As we move further down between 340 to 1,300 centimorgans, we enter the first cousin to second cousin zone. And again, lots of variability. Could this be a first cousin once removed, a half aunt or an uncle, or even a great aunt or uncle? So we need to ask more questions and look at other clues like ages, geography, and known family trees. And once we hit the 90 to 340 centimorgan range, that's likely a second cousin or a more distant connection like a cousin twice removed. And below that, 65 centimorgans or less, we're likely in the distant cousin territory. These matches can be really hard to place without tree building and segment data and analysis. The main message here is centimorgans give us a starting point, but they don't give us all the answers. And that's why combining centimorgan data with additional tools and good old-fashioned genealogical research is so important. And for people who are adopted, donor conceived, or have unknown parentage, these overlapping ranges are exactly why having support and guidance from professionals like genetic genealogists and support agencies make a big difference. Now, I did receive a question about a DNA match which was a 380 centimorgan match. This slide shows you the possible relationships that this match could be according to the Shared Centimorgans project, which is available freely for use online. If I saw this as a DNA match, I would first explore if this person has a family tree attached to their account firstly, as you're wanting to build their tree back to great-great-grandparents, possibly even another generation further back. The next step is to look at the shared DNA matches between you and this DNA match and explore their family trees. Once you find the common ancestors between these DNA matches, you would then build the branches of the tree down to find possible birth parents. And I'll talk more about this in a minute. But as you can see, that 380 match, while it sounds good, it could be all those different types of relationships in that chart. So this slide is an example of some of the things you'll see on an ancestry page. I've blurred out the actual names of people so that it's private. But the top match of Bob, you can see the amount of centimorgans shared is 3,328, and the predicted relationship is father. The image on the left shows the match SJ, and this shows the predicted relationship of second cousin or half first cousin one time removed, and the amount of shared DNA being 272 centimorgans. To see the other possible relationships based on the number of centimorgans, click the relationship link where the red arrow is pointing. In the opened window on the right of the screen, you'll see the predicted relationships that are possible for this match. All very handy information to review. So the next steps after testing. First, take a breath. There's no rush. You don't need to message anyone straight away or try to work it all out in one night. DNA discovery is a process. It unfolds over time. Sometimes it's quickly, sometimes it's slowly, and that's all okay. Start to look for patterns. Spend time looking at your matches and look for people with public trees, common surnames, or common locations, and shared matches that seem to form a group. Start to jot down some notes or even start a spreadsheet if you'd like, looking for those patterns. Build a simple research tree. Even if you don't know who your parents are, you can start building what we call a mirror tree or a research tree based on what you're finding in your DNA match trees. You're building out their tree to try and find the connection point back to you. As I said, you can consider uploading your DNA to other databases. Once you've tested with Ancestry, you can download your raw DNA file and upload it for free to other sites like MyHeritage, Family Tree DNA, and GEDmatch. This expands your reach and increases your chances of finding more matches. Remember, more genetic networks. So the match list is your key to uncovering your relationships. The higher the shared DNA, measured in centimorgans, the closer the match. We begin building hypotheses. Could this person be a sibling? Is it a first cousin or is it a niece? So this is what I feel like some days. Once you've identified a few promising DNA matches, the next step is to consider whether they've linked a family tree to their ancestry profile, and if it's public, it can give you some great clues. These trees often include surnames, locations, and sometimes even photos or stories. You're looking for repeated patterns. For example, if 3 of your DNA matches all have someone named William Mackenzie from Tamworth in their tree, that's probably not a coincidence. It's also useful to look at the shared matches between you and this DNA match or person that you're exploring. If several of them have the same tree names or places, that might suggest that they're all part of the same family branch, and it gives you something to start building on. Even if the person hasn't added a tree, their profile can still offer helpful content. Some people list a location, an age range, or even have a username that includes a surname, which can all be useful clues if you're building out research trees. And just to be clear, you're not contacting anyone yet. This is just gentle observation and detective work. You're gathering pieces of a puzzle and seeing where they might fit. So once you have your DNA match list, you'll start to notice patterns. One of the most useful things you can do is look for matches who are connected not just to you, but to each other. These are small networks or clusters of matches who are often people from the same side of your family. Could be maternal side or paternal side, or even the same branch, like they're all descended from one particular grandparent. Some clues to help you spot these family groups include people who share similar surnames in their family trees, matches with locations in common, like they're all from Queensland, they're all from Scotland. Groups with similar centimorgan amounts are often siblings or cousins of each other. People who all appear in the Shared Matches tab when you click on them. By putting all these clues together, you can start building out small family groups and work out which side of your family they might belong to. Eventually, these clusters will help you narrow down your search and work out where these matches are most important to follow up. We cluster matches who also match one another. This tells us that they might all descend from the same side of the family. This is crucial when we don't know if the DNA is maternal or paternal, but Ancestry is starting to hint at this for us. Shared surnames and locations start to give us big clues. We often build trees for DNA matches, not for the tester. And we're doing that because we want to see where the DNA match lines intersect. It's reverse genealogy. If two matches are second cousins, we find their shared great grandparents and then work down from there. Often in this work, we're going back in time before we come forward. We start by working our way up the family tree, looking at ancestors further back before we come down the branches to identify the right people being in the right place at the right time. I spend a lot of my time analysing groups or clusters of DNA matches, usually people who share around that fourth cousin level or closer. And I look closely at what these matches have in common. As I said, particularly around those shared surnames, locations, and time periods. From there, I build multiple family trees, often from scratch, and hope that they begin to intersect at common ancestors, because that's our point of connection. Once we've identified that shared ancestral couple, I switch gears into more traditional genealogical research, tracing the lines forward through time, generation by generation, to try and locate living descendants or pinpoint when a conception likely occurred. When it comes to identifying or locating living individuals, that's more of when the private investigation style work comes in. It's a blend of detective work, logic, and compassion. One of the most important things I can say is be patient. You might not get the answers you're hoping for straight away, and this can be really hard. But DNA databases are growing all the time. Every single day, new people test, and that means new matches are always being added. Sometimes a close match appears months or even years after someone first tests. Just because you don't see a parent or sibling in your list today doesn't mean they won't be there tomorrow. Family discovery through DNA is often a slow build. It's not a one-time event, it's an unfolding process. So check back now and then, update your notes, and give it time. You never know what new pieces of the puzzle might show up next. Another important tip is make a habit of keeping notes on your DNA matches, especially the close ones. You might think you'll remember who they are and what their tree had, but once you've looked at a few dozen matches, it all starts to get really blurry. More importantly, people sometimes delete their tests. They make their trees private and they sometimes change their usernames. If you've noted down their centimorgan amount that they share with you, any surnames in their tree, where they're from, and you'll still have that information even if that disappears from your match list later. And I've seen it, particularly those really close matches you want to capture. You don't need to be fancy. A notebook, a spreadsheet, or even just jotting it down in a Word document can do the trick. Just try to get into the habit of saving what you see, or take a screenshot, take a photo of it, especially contact details while you see them. So contacting DNA matches, you're under no obligation to message anyone ever. You can do an enormous amount of research and get very close to answers without reaching to anyone at all. Public trees, shared matches, usernames, and locations often give you enough to build a very solid theory. So if you're not ready to contact someone, that's completely fine. There's real value in just quietly watching and gathering information. But if you do decide to reach out, especially to a close match, it's important to take a slow, sensitive approach. You never know what the person on the other end knows or doesn't know about their own family story. So when you're reaching out to a DNA match, especially in a family discovery context, you never know, as I said, what that person knows or doesn't know about their own family story. That's why I think it's best to take a trauma-informed approach. It means being very gentle, neutral, and respectful. You're opening a door, you're not banging it down. So keep your message short and simple. So here's an example. Hi, such and such. I noticed that we share a DNA match and I'm currently working on my family tree. I'm hoping to understand more about how we might be connected. If you're open to sharing any family history or tree information, I'd really appreciate it. This kind of message gives the other person space. You're not making any assumptions or demands, you're just leaving the door open. You can add in more information if you like about the predicted relationship that the company suggests that you might be, or how many centimorgans that you share. It's perfectly okay if people don't respond or if they're not ready either. You can revisit it later or continue building your research from other matches. In my experience, some people will write back straight away, some people need time, and some people never respond. And all of these options are all totally okay. Remember that you don't have to do this journey alone either. Adoption support agencies like Jigsaw can help you write that first message or even act as an intermediary if you prefer some distance. In groups like in Queensland, groups like Jigsaw offer this help, and other states have similar services. They understand the emotions behind this type of contact, not just for you, but also for the person receiving the message. And it can be really helpful for them to help you with those early conversations. The forced adoption support phone line connects to your particular service in your state if you're not in Queensland. So it's really common to feel a mix of emotions during this process: excitement, anxiety, hope, grief, confusion, and even guilt. These are all really normal, and you're not alone in feeling them. It's a lot to learn and can feel really overwhelming. You might uncover unexpected information or feel unsure rather, about what to do next. And that's why it's important to take care of your emotional well-being as you go. Some things that I've suggested to some of my clients that might help is to write things down. Sometimes journaling or making a timeline helps to make sense of what you've discovered. Talk to people, a trusted friend, counsellor, or someone who's been through the process before. Step back if you need to. Take a few days or weeks before making big decisions like messaging a match or sharing your results. There is no right way to feel and no set pace that you need to follow. Go gently and ask for help if you need it. So before we finish, I want to leave you with some practical resources that can help you explore this field further. Whether you're new to genetic genealogy or you're simply curious to learn more, there's some fantastic books out there written specifically for adoptees, donor-conceived people, and genealogists working in this space. A few that I recommend are Blaine Bettinger's books, which are incredibly useful for understanding DNA basics and tools. There's the DNA Guide for Adoptees by Brianne Kirkpatrick and Shannon Coombs-Bennett, which walks you through the testing, interpreting results, and the emotional side of the journey. There's the Adopted Guide to DNA Testing by Tamar Weinberg, which is full of practical and real-world advice for navigating the process. For those of you who prefer to learn online, the genie1.au website is by Louise Coakley, who's my colleague from many years ago from my local family history centre. She's a brilliant Australian-based resource, and Ancestry DNA help pages as well offer step-by-step guidance. And if you want to know more about downloading your Ancestry DNA, Louise's website has all that information and step-by-step guides on that as well. If you're on Facebook, there are some incredibly supportive and knowledgeable communities. Using DNA for Genealogy Australia and New Zealand is a particularly good one. DNA Detectives Down Under is great for adoptees and those with unknown parentage. There's DNA for the donor conceived, genetic genealogy tips and techniques. There's the International Society of Genetic Genealogy and DNA for Genealogy UK if you've got British ancestry. The ISOG, which is the International Society of Genetic Genealogy, is also an amazing reference tool. It's like a DNA dictionary and research library all rolled into one. In terms of further learning, there's some excellent options. There's Legacy Family Tree webinars. Many of them are free or very low cost. There's Roots Tech. It's the world's largest family history conference conference, and a lot of those sessions are free and available online every year, and they're available all year. So there's lots of DNA, sort of very basic, and then moving into more advanced things on that website. Local family history groups in your area, either in or online, are also great places to connect and keep learning. I've put together a handout with all these resources. I should have said that at the start so that you weren't wanting to write it down, Natalie. And Simone's happy to email out this to you at the end of the session. So thank you very much for your time today and for your attention throughout this session. I know that it's been a lot of information. It's lots of science and the process of genetic genealogy to the emotional and ethical considerations. I'm always available on email if any questions come to mind later, or if you want to have a conversation one-on-one, please feel free to get in touch. And I hope that this session has given you some new information or ideas to help you on your journey.
Thank you so much, Mel, for walking us through that great information. And I know it's a really great starting point, I think, for us to wrap our head around DNA and where to start. So as Mel said, I will be emailing out the resource list that Mel has just discussed. So I'll do that after the conclusion of today's information session. And then through the week, I will also email out a feedback survey, and we would really love your thoughts and feedback about today's session, and also input about if there are further education sessions or information sessions that you would like that we can consider as well. So I hope you have a fantastic Saturday afternoon. Thank you all for joining us here, and thank you again, Mel, for walking us through that information. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having me.